bobbing along in our barrel. Some of us tip right over the edge. But there's one thing really mystifying. Got me laughing now, it's got me crying. All my life it will be testifying till I know. I wonder, wonder why the wonderfall. I wonder why the wonder falls on me. I wonder, wonder why the wonder falls. With everything I touch and hear and see.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Bobbin Along, a Wonderfalls podcast. I am your host, Brandon Ellison. We are discussing the very little seen but very much enjoyed Fox TV series Wonderfalls. And this week we are discussing the episode Crime Dog. I normally have my partner in Crime Dog, BJ Kramer with me, but unfortunately he's having some audio issues with his computer. So I called, this episode is all about smuggling people in and out of Canada. So I figured I would reach out to the two Canadians that I care to speak to. The only two, no, I'm kidding. I love Canadians. You guys are great. I love syrup. First up, my friend Gianna. Gianna is a film producer and location scout and master of all things Canadian film based in Toronto. Hi, Gianna.
Hi, Brandon. How's it going?
It's wonderful. I'm so happy you joined me for this weird thing that I told you nothing about and just sent you a link to watch. and we're also joined by my friend Paul. Paul is a criminal defense lawyer in Alberta, Canada. Hi, Paul.
Hey, how's it going?
Everybody's here. This is so exciting. So we will occasionally have comments come up from our Facebook and Twitch and YouTube channels. So anyone who's watching, feel free to jump on over and have a look and comment, and we will possibly throw your stuff up on the screen. So this show, Wonderfalls, is a show that I'm guessing that neither of you had probably ever heard of because nobody's heard of it.
Yeah.
Canceled after 4 episodes all the way back in 2004. So it's we're watching the start of the unaired episodes. So this is where we are in the grand scheme of things. Had either of you ever heard of this or knew anyone from the cast of this?
Not even a little bit.
I recognize
William Sadler.
William Sadler, sure. Yeah. He's fabulous. So this show, they filmed it obviously in Canada because the New York side of Niagara Falls does not look anywhere near as nice as that. And Caroline DeVerness, who's the lead in the show, obviously, she has done a shit ton of Canadian TV. She just did a show called Mary Kills People that was about assisted suicide doctor. I don't know if either of you have heard of that. It's really good.
I've heard of it. It's supposed to be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, before we start talking about the actual episode itself, what was your impression of sort of the world and the themes of this show and do you have any idea what's going on?
It's quirky. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the episode. I would have liked to seen the 4 previous episodes.
Good call.
Try and understand the world a little bit more, but that's okay.
Yeah. So basically, the backstory is that Jay works at a souvenir shop in Niagara Falls, and one day she flips a coin at the Maid of the Mist statue, and it bounces off and hits her back in the head, and then all the inanimate objects with faces start talking to her and telling her to do things. And as we discovered in this episode, that occasionally leads to very good things happening.
Yeah.
Or whatever you would call whatever the hell happened in this episode. This is definitely one of the more quirky and indirect sort of episodes. There's a lot of leading you down a path that then is where the hell are we going with this? And then it's oh, okay, she's not French now.
Thankfully.
So getting into this, so I know that I met Gianna in New York 400 years ago.
It was 2007 or 2008.
It was a while ago. And then Paul, I don't think we've ever met in person, have we?
We did. After my second year of law school, I made a trip to Vegas, and we
Yes.
hung out a bit there, yeah.
Did you come to the Phoenix and we hung out at the Phoenix?
Yeah.
Bam, bam, bam. I remember now. I'm getting
Yeah,
very
and we
old.
did Penn and Teller.
And we went to Penn and Teller. Now I remember all this. I am very old, and my memory is leaving me. But now it all came back to me. Clearly, yeah, I'm stupid. Anyway, so I wanted to just kind of get into the minutia of this episode, and maybe like Paul, maybe you're like a good person to talk to about this, because my favorite part of this episode is when when they go to the Canadian border. The Canadian border guards are just like, "Oh, what are you doing up here in our country?" And
that accent's such bullshit.
and they're, "Oh yeah, we're just going up there for pleasure." And then when they come back, of course, it's like myopic, like what are you bringing in the car? Like super like strict. Have you found that to be your experience coming and leaving Canada?
Well, pre-September 11th, your border guards were way nicer than ours. Like, it was great coming into the States. "Oh yeah, what you coming down for? Yeah, no problem." I mean, before then, we didn't even need passports, really.
Right.
Just some proof of citizenship, and yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, coming back, and maybe it was just the crossing that we had. There was this one guy who you could tell he was just pissed that he wasn't allowed to be a real cop. So he was just an asshole. So this one border guard at the Kingsgate crossing, it was just a dick.
And you, here's what I know about Canadian geography. Nothing. You guys, you live pretty close to the border, right, Paul?
Not even. No, I'm pretty far, actually.
That's what I meant. The opposite.
Yeah.
Super far. It's you guys are so far north that it seems like it.
Well, I think Edmonton's about 8 hours, about 8 hours ish from the border, maybe a bit more.
Ah, nice. And Gianna, you were originally from Alberta as well, right?
Yeah, I'm from Lethbridge.
I remember.
Oh, don't brag. Don't brag.
I remember things. But now Toronto is like, I do want to talk about this because our viewers are interested in this. When we talk about like how they filmed this whole show in Canada and pretended it was upstate New York, like there's so much of that happens. What is it about why do people film in Canada and pretend it's the United States?
We're cheap.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a little cheaper. We have grants and tax credits available for film productions.
Yeah.
So it's a little.
And then my other question is, why is it that your country is a huge country geographically, but maybe not so big population-wise? How is it that like every actor and singer ever is from Canada?
Is that talented?
You got all the greats. You got Dave Coulier. Avril Lavigne. I mean, really, just legendary stars.
The Biebs is actually on our $5 bill.
Who is?
Justin Bieber's on our $5 bill.
I'm not buying that. I'm not buying it.
Okay.
Because I imagine the Queen is still on your $5. Isn't the Queen on everything?
No, it's actually Laurier on the $5 bill.
Who?
One of our prime ministers.
Oh.
It's like a president, but Canadian.
Yeah, no, I got that.
There
Your prime minister's name is L'Oreal, like the makeup?
No, Laurier. Sir Wilfrid Laurier is on the $5 bill. He was like our best prime minister. And then
okay.
They've been getting like worse and worse since.
Oh. It's really embarrassing as an American because I travel a lot and I meet a lot of Canadians traveling. And of course, like the basis of Canadian identity when you meet them abroad is that they're not Americans. Canadians just want to make it abundantly clear that they are not actually Americans.
Well, we don't like having our food spit in.
Right. Yeah, except that we tip, so they like us. It's a mixed bag. So yeah, I find that all very interesting, the whole like dynamic between Americans and Canadians, which this episode explored pretty much in depth. So we find out that like the episode opens with Jay in a police precinct and that she is in trouble for smuggling. We don't really find out early in the episode what exactly she was smuggling, but she's in trouble and her sister is there. And then we like rewind and we find out that their housekeeper was being arrested because she was illegally in the country for 20 years. And the mom in this episode is the highlight of this whole episode for me.
Oh yeah, she's so funny.
She's great. And I love when she's like, the dad's like, you lied to me for 20 years. And she goes, no, I didn't. I lied to you once. And then I never bothered to clear it up. I love that quote. There was the initial lie, and then I never bothered to tell you the truth, is what I wrote in my notes. And so there's like a ceramic cow creamer for like a coffee creamer, and the cow creamer tells Jay to have a pancake, which is like the way that the show has been going, and you'll see if you go back and watch the first 4 episodes, is that the animals will say the same thing over and over again, and then it turns out that they're talking about, so they'll be like, bring her back to him, and it's like, okay, well, who's her, who's him, what bringing is required? In this one, it's literally just eat a fucking pancake. And the immigration officers show up, they arrest and they deport this French-Canadian housekeeper that the family's had forever. And they send her back to Toronto. Now, right off the bat, now again, I've made it clear that I know nothing about Canada except Jim Carrey and Jan Arden. So when they said she's going back to Toronto, I thought that was odd because there's not a ton of French speakers in Toronto, right?
That's right. Yeah.
They're mostly in Quebec.
Yes.
Yeah, but are you guys bilingual? You speak French and English?
Oh no, not even. I a little bit of French. There's only one bilingual province actually, which is New Brunswick.
Oh,
so there are a lot of
really?
French speakers there too. Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that French was compulsory in like all Canadian schools.
Well, they try to teach it to you in school, and then you just lose it because,
Yeah.
like here in Alberta, nobody uses it unless you're in like one of these isolated French communities in like the north.
Here's my question: if Alberta was a U.S. state, which U.S. state would it be?
Texas.
Texas.
And Edmonton would be Austin.
Okay. And what's Lethbridge?
Oh God, I have no idea.
San Antonio.
Waco.
Okay, that answered all my questions. And then Toronto's very like cosmopolitan, like sort of like New York.
Yeah.
I think so.
Kind of boring.
I mean,
I mean,
New York.
Toronto's nice.
I don't think it's boring. I mean, I've only been here 2 months, but it's been fun.
Yeah, no, I've only been to Toronto for concerts. I've been to concerts at some theater downtown, and then at the Air Canada Center.
Right. Yeah.
And here's what I bitch about Air Canada: the worst airline in the entire fucking world.
Oh, bar none. Yeah.
Hands down.
What a disgrace! What a disgrace! And to bear your country's name on the side of their planes like that is just very disappointing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm flying. This is totally not related to the show, but this is what we do here. I'm flying to Eastern Europe in November, and I was looking at flights, and one of like the cheapest option was that I fly Air Canada and then connect in London and take BA from London to Albania, and I literally paid $200 extra to not have to fly on Air Canada.
That's a good choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Solid option.
Yeah, well, I would like to get there at some point, so.
Yeah. All your stuff.
So anyway, the cow creamer then, back to the show, the cow creamer then tells Jay to bring her home. And so Jay's like, okay, bring her home. Like, we gotta go to Canada and get our housekeeper and bring her back here. So Lee Pace plays her brother Aaron. And Lee Pace is someone that's been in a ton of movies that you would probably like. He was on the show Pushing Daisies, if you remember that at all. He is in the Hobbit movies as somebody. I don't know, maybe a hobbit or a wizard or something. I don't watch those movies. Anyway, he's quite a good actor. He's been around quite a bit. And this episode, and Will is in the comments, and he can attest this. This episode is really this where the show gets really good because it builds this family dynamic between them. Because the family is so different and dynamic. You have the lesbian lawyer sister that smokes cigarettes in the police station.
That's so good.
Pays the fine in cash. You have the dad who's like Republican golf club doctor guy. You have the mom who's like clearly was a trophy wife at some point and is now just kind of pulling the strings in the household. Will points out that Lee Pace plays Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy as well. You have who have I covered? You have Jay, obviously the souvenir shop worker in Niagara Falls. And then you have the brother Aaron, who is a comparative religion major who's like constantly looking at how religions work, whatever. And this episode is the start of him building up like, maybe my sister's not actually crazy. Maybe these animal things are actually talking to her. So Lee Pace actually replaced Adam Scott, who was originally in the role, who you might know from Parks and Recreation and some other stuff. Yeah. So we find that these characters go to Canada. They cross the border. They have whatever. And it's Jay and her brother decide to go do this together. They find her immediately at the bus station, which, of course, I've been to the bus station in Toronto. It's much bigger than that. And you could not find a person there if you tried. But they find her there, and they've built like a cocoon in the trunk with a Return of the Jedi blanket that she refers to as a teddy bear blanket. And they start driving, and then the cow creamer starts screaming, "Ride on red, ride on red, ride on red." And they drive into like some shrubbery in front of this house, first down a one-way road and then into some bushes in front of this house. And it turns out that it's Yvette's parents. And Yvette is not actually French-Canadian at all. I mean, she's still Canadian, so that's something. But her parents are sort of the archetypal, distant, conservative parents that sort of let her run off and never went looking for her. It's kind of sad, actually. It's a sad bit did you agree that was kind of a sad bit of the show?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you're just like, come on.
Like, when you run away to be a housekeeper for 20 years, you got to think what you were running from was way worse.
Yeah. Right. And then like it also kind of gets into this family dynamic with like the help. Like she was basically, all these kids were basically raised by the help. The parents were so self-centered and busy and whatever that they weren't around. I'm guessing because you're my friends that neither of you grew up with the help around. I don't think I have any friends who have ever had a live-in housekeeper or a housekeeper of any kind, frankly.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But so we find out Yvette, also known as Cindy, it was a runaway, and her parents were so emotionally cold they never even went looking for her. And the cow just constantly keeps talking to her. And then I love the bit when Jay locks herself in her car, and the cow is talking to her, moo, 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 and whatever. And then, and it's sort of like this delve into madness that is her life. Like when she's asking these constant questions of like, why did we do this? Why everything just got worse when you came around, et cetera, et cetera. Naomi says that her parents were like a worse version of Jay's parents. And I agree with that. There's a lot of parallels there, including their housekeeper, who is a French Canadian named Yvette. And she knew exactly what word that Cindy spelled for her spelling bee thing, which was so sweet. And she made it a sandwich. So she's like, I'm not gonna lie, I moistened a bit. I got a little bit moist. Paul, you don't work in immigration law at all, do you?
Just criminal defense.
Okay, because
there are some immigration consequences to some criminal matters, but yeah, I don't work in immigration really.
Because it seems like the way that this episode played out, that it might have been a little bit unrealistic in terms of the legal standings.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard of a warrant for deportation.
Right. That's on the U.S. side, right? That Yvette had a warrant for deportation. Yeah, and also this episode was like before ICE and before we started putting children in camps at the border. So this and I love the scene where the immigration officers come in. And they're like, oh, we're officers from the blah, 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 4 letters. And the whole house is like, who? And he's like, immigration and blah, blah, blah. And then the brother just goes, INS. They tried to make up a fake agency and it just didn't stick, which was great. But yeah, like I've never, like, first of all, okay, so Jay So they keep the housekeeper for 20 years, right? Is there any legal consequences for a family for employing an illegal immigrant for 20 years?
Probably.
I would think so as well.
But I mean, they'd have to know. That's the thing. You have
Right.
to prove that they knew.
Right. But she did know.
Again,
And she
that one might be a tough one to prove. I don't know how they paid her, if they were just paying her in cash or what the deal was.
Right. Yeah. Now she's going to get a tax bill. That's the next episode.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, yeah, there are going to be some tax consequences for sure.
Yeah, if that's 20 years of tax bills come to. Yeah, and then so they go to Canada. They lie when they enter the country, which is super illegal, right? And
Yeah,
then
well, they said they were there for pleasure. I mean, they probably maybe they grabbed a coffee on the way in. I don't know.
yeah, maybe, or they stopped and saw had a Molson.
Yeah, there we go.
They spent a toonie on a Molson, and then they sorry, and then they go get the housekeeper and they bring her back in the trunk, and the only
Things are legal at that point for sure.
for sure. Well, driving down a one-way street, wrecking someone's yard, and then driving back over the border with her in the trunk. I just feel like the consequences would have been much more dire in real life. I don't think a call from your dad could have fixed this problem.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean, the other thing is that interrogation with that police officer would not have been admissible. So Jay's confession would have got thrown right out. They wouldn't be able to use that against her, because the one part where the officer asks her if she wants a lawyer, and she's like, and then the cop just steamrolls her and starts asking her stuff. Like, in both of our countries, that's not going to fly.
Right.
If you say you want your right to counsel, they've got to, let you talk to your lawyer.
Sure. And ultimately they get a vet, they bring her back home. They say first principles always family, you take care of them first. We find out that the dad has been talking to his contacts on the golf course, etc., etc. Will says Canadians are so nice that all's forgiven by just saying sorry. I think that's pretty accurate. Okay, so to me, this episode is all about that family dynamic, like we were talking about. And my favorite character in this whole episode is the lawyer sister with the cigarettes. Every time she's on screen,
she's hilarious.
Yeah, every single time. What were your final thoughts on this episode, and sort of where you see this show going, or what's your final take on your idea of this show?
Well, I'm wondering how fucking connected that dad is, that he plays one round of golf and all this stuff goes away. How powerful are people in Niagara Falls that they can make that happen?
Right. Right. Yeah, is Niagara Falls this weird bastion of political power that none of us know about? Correct. Gianna, what were your final thoughts on the show?
I just want to watch it now.
Good call. Well, every episode is available on YouTube.
Okay, great. No, good quality, but
well, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's not streaming anywhere else. I can send you I'll send you a playlist that has all of them in pretty decent quality. It's only 12 episodes. I highly recommend watching it. And I do want to thank you guys for coming on and talking to me about Canada.
Oh, happy to help.
Yeah, and general Canadian stuff. Oh, and Will says this episode sets up a push and pull her brother has about what it means if a higher power is actually speaking to her. Exactly. Before we go, I do have to do a couple quick announcements. We have a Patreon page, patreon.com/GerardCast. It's $5 a month. You can subscribe. You get all of our shows backlogged and whatever, accessible in video and audio format. You also get interviews, the full-length interviews that we do with celebrities from the show. And you get our access to our private Facebook page where we talk about Buffy and Wonderfalls and soon-to-be West Wing and Hannibal and a bunch of other shit. So come and join that. Our podcast, our Gerardcast podcast, which is our Buffy podcast, is available on all podcast sites. Once I get all these episodes edited, they'll be up as well and available. And what else I got? Our West Wing podcast, Winging It, starts on January 1st, as does our Hannibal podcast, Eat the Rude. So keep an eye out for that. And Gianna and Paul, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank
See
you.
again.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
You
Yeah,
too.
you too.
Bye.
Bye.